fine. We'll work it out as we go along. But yeah, well, thank you, GAMM people, for having me over. This is my first time in Moscow, and it's interesting. I haven't seen much of it yet, but I expect I will. This session is about Away3D, the 3D engine. So, for those of you who don't know, Away3D is a 3D engine for Flash and is open source, free, without restriction. You can download it from our website, use it for projects that require 3D graphics. And it started around 2007, so we've been going for over 5 years. Yay. But it's been a very odd journey because we started with Flash 9 and we had difficulties with performance and so on, and then Flash 10 is a little bit better, and now Flash 11. We have finally the Stage 3D APIs to be able to accelerate the 3D graphics. So it's an interesting time, and this talk is really about the sort of implications of that and how we're going to be dealing with it, really. So yeah, this is a few little pieces about me. Infinite Turtles is my blog. Away3D is our main website where we post updates on the engine, and you can download the source and you can see demos and tutorials and so on. Away Media is my production company that I run alongside Away3D, and that's a production and consultancy for companies. And my Twitter feed is RobNet, if you want to follow me. Okay, so just a bit of history. Back in 2011 now, I suppose, Flash 11 Incubator was released, which was this new thing, well, for two reasons. First, the incubator is something which Adobe's really only started doing in Flash, and this particular version was with the Stage 3D APIs that we now all have in the official version of Flash 11. But back then it was an incubator release, which means it was not for full public consumption, but for developers to test out and see how they got on with the APIs. So at the time, we produced an alpha version of the next sort of major iteration of our API, Away3D 4. And this worked very well. It had incredible performance, up to 1,000 times more polygons per frame than the previous version of Flash, which is a huge leap, really. So we were very excited by that. And then later last year, the release occurred, and now you can use this in your productions online, and it's for public consumption. So Away3D 4 is now released in beta, and this is something which has all the features that you need to be able to easily create 3D graphics inside Flash using the hardware accelerated Stage 3D APIs. So what Away3D does really is just offer a layer of abstraction to allow you to easily create this stuff without having to know a lot of the more complex OpenGL-like code that is at the root of Stage 3D. But, you know, it sounds like quite a lot of effort. You know, why should we bother? Why don't we just carry on as we were with Flash 10 and so on? I mean, that worked pretty well. People got a lot of good sights out of it, right? Well, it's kind of like this, I guess. The display list is like a kind of car in the fact that it's very dependable, it's reliable, it can be used for a multitude of different purposes. It's something we were all familiar with, and then along comes some new technology which offers a lot more speed And this is what this playlist is. This is what stage 3D is, sorry. So it's like a kind of a good and a bad thing. With this sort of analogy, a train is obviously a lot faster than a car, but it can only go in a straight line along a track. So in the same sort of way, stage 3D can go in a straight line on the GPU, and it has that sort of limitation because the GPU expects things to be done in a certain way, and so it's not quite as flexible as what we've been used to in display this. So it takes a bit of getting used to for that reason, but it's something that offers huge amounts more speed. So like I said, it's 1,000 times potentially as much as you would have got with the display list, which is a software renderer, doesn't use the GPU. And nowhere is this more applicable, I guess, than on mobile devices these days, which all have GPUs built in. And if you're not using the GPU, then you are at a severe disadvantage against other software platforms. So it's hugely beneficial for that. So, as a sort of quick interlude, I want to show you a showreel of some recent content that's been created with Away3D.
Seem to have a history at missing the point, and this stuff apparently very absent-mindedly I care, but never enough for
Okay, so hopefully you're all a little more awake now. So So that was a kind of sample, I guess, of the stuff that's been released in about the last year or so with our engine. A lot of companies around the world use it for various advertising sites, games, apps, and so on. So yeah, it's an example of the kind of stuff that you can do with the Away3D. And next, I want to just sort of talk a little about the tools that we need to use for this now, because that has changed somewhat from previous versions now that we have GPU graphics. It's a little bit different in terms of how you get your graphics in and how you are able to optimize them. And the first thing I want to talk about is file formats, which is not really something that is there is no official solution from Adobe on this. It's something which is being left up to the community to provide in a way. And AWD is the Away3D file format. This is something which has been going for around 2.5 years now. And again, it started in Flash 10, but now that we have Flash 11, the API has been entirely rewritten to deal with the kind of stuff that you have to deal with accelerated graphics. And the main issue is size, because now that you have so many more polygons, you have so much more data, and so this is an issue when you're downloading. So what AWD does is two things. It compresses and it truncates. And if we take a standard file format for an example file, if I just go back to one, the monkey that you saw on the left there is the Suzanne model, which is a free mesh that you get with the Blender 3D tool. And it's something which is easy to use for tests and so on. So taking that as an example, it's about 60,000 polygons. Collada compresses that to 6 megabytes. Well, I say compresses. Maybe not, but it's a verbose format. Collada is XML based, and so it doesn't really have the necessary abilities for something that requires a high degree of data. If you're talking about downloading that on the web, of course, it's going to be quite slow. If we have a look at the zipped form of Collada, you obviously get better performance, but then you have to unzip it. It's an extra step in your processing toolchain. OBJ is a very popular format, and that's something which is, again, text-based like Collada, but not XML, just text. So it's a bit smaller for that reason, and it's about 2.2 megabytes for that model. 3ds is the old 3D Studio Max format. It's binary, so that gives it an advantage on size. But again, it's there's problems, mainly the one being that it's quite old. It's over 10 years old, or maybe even 20 years old, I can't remember now. But it's been around for a long time, and things have moved on somewhat in terms of what's required of a format. So it can do basic meshes, but it can't do things like bones animation, for example. And then we get to AWD, which compresses to a tad smaller than 3ds, just the binary data, that is. So it's a binary-based format, and it can do a lot of different things within that, based on your scene graph data, your materials data, your animations, and so on and so on and so on. Then we can compress. So the previous number was without any compression at all, just data. If we compress that, we get down to 500 kilobytes. If we use the advanced compression that's now available in Flash 11, LZMA, we get down to 320. But can't go any lower than that yet. So you can see the differences really in this, and the advantages for your website if you're creating something that you want to perform well. A big part of that is how fast it downloads. The format is also available in plugin form, so that you can actually create this with your own tools that you use. So Blender obviously being a big one, because it's free and open source like us. You can install the AWD plugin in that, and then create AWD files from your Blender project. There's also a Maya plugin, and there is just recently been released one for 3D Studio Max as well. And if you go to that link at the bottom, that's where the source repository is, and you can download all of this for free. It's an open source project, and install that on whichever platform you want. So next, so you have your models, and your designer's given them to you. They look great, but oh dear, there's some problem with the texture, or there's some problem with the lighting, or they haven't quite arranged them right, or I'm sure you've all been there. Prefab is a proofing tool for 3D files. So once you have your files, you can tweak them with prefab, and prefab 2.0 is something which has not yet been released yet, but it's hopefully coming soon. It's being finalized at the moment, and it's an air-based tool that uses Away3D 4, so the Stage 3D accelerated version, and provides you with a preview of what you're trying to create. So it's very useful in quickly rendering what you're trying to do, adjusting it, resaving it, and then using it in your project. And I just want to give you a quick demo of that now. So this is the Prefab 2 interface. It's a sort of standard 3D interface. And if I want to, say, for example, display a file, I can drag and drop files in here, but it's a little bit difficult on this screen, so I'm just going to select. And let's start off with an OBJ file. Now, OBJ is a pretty standard format, but a lot of the time it has problems with textures not being linked correctly, as this one has. And it has a separate file for that, and sometimes the file gets lost, and So prefab can help in these sorts of situations when you just have the files and you need to be able to relink, say, the textures. You can select through the interface the different images that we have here for diffuse, normal, and specular textures. And if we just sort of stack these up here, then we get something which looks more like what was exported by the designer. Now, if we can add light to the scene, we can actually see how this looks lit. And I can just select this and apply a light, and you get a nice lighting effect. I can show where the light actually is and then move it around. I can change the color of the light. I can add another light. So you can do a lot that just sort of allows you to sort of tweak and have a look at how things are going to be, whether or not they need changing or modifying, or whether they need optimizing, all that. And one other thing I just want to quickly show you is animation. Now I'll use an AWD file for this. Hang on. That didn't work. Okay, let me just start this again real quick. As you can see, still in testing. So this basically can do an import of a variety of file formats, including our own AWD format. So if I open this, there we go. Again, you get an untextured model, and I can go to the material. Oh, that's the wrong one. Material 4 there. But what's nice about this is that if there's animation contained within the material, within the model, I can actually preview the animation by using this little animation tool down the bottom here. And if I just duplicate this mesh, drag out another one, I can select a different animation to just sort of try out different animations that may have been imported. Now, what's nice about this is that this is using Away3D to render. So you will see exactly what you will see in your final product. That's the big advantage. You don't have to worry about changes in how the lighting is handled or how the animations are handled. This will be picked up right at this stage. So it's very useful to be able to see that as the designs are coming in real time. Okay, I should hurry it along. So next is other libraries. So Away3D is one of many open source libraries in Flash platform, and some of the other existing ones actually integrate with us to provide 3D functionality for whatever they are trying to do. And one of the ones that I just want to talk about briefly is something that Eugene will actually be talking about later today. It's his library into AR. This is a very cool point tracking library which allows you to track images in real time through a webcam. And I just want to demo it very cool. Maybe I'll come back to this because I might come back to this because I've got this set up first. Let's do this one first. This one might not actually work because the connect fell off, so it's probably broken. We'll try this one first. I'll come back to into AR, but this one, AS3NUI, is a new library for hooking up stuff to an Air project. So it's based on native extensions, which is a new feature in Air, and it is something which is very cool because native extensions allow you to run code a lot faster than it would do otherwise on Flash VM. And it allows you to connect up to all sorts of peripheral devices on your machine as well. So if you're on a mobile device, you can do things like access the camera and so on. But this particular library works on the desktop and allows you to do cool stuff with the Kinect. So I'm just going to demo that now. I hope it works. Please don't be broken. Okay, here we go. So it's still working. So this is the basic interface. You can see it's kind of tracking various bits of me. But if I go to the 3D demo, you can see the bit that is being is using Away3D to operate. So this will take a while to pick me up, but then I can move this model around. Works a bit better, go back. I can do a bit zombie. Yeah. It's too early in the morning to dance, sorry. Anyway, it works really nicely for the API. This is still running in Flash. This is running in Air, but it's using native extensions in a very cool way. And the 3D is obviously all done with Away3D on our side. So another one that I'll show you now, go back to, oh, that's the wrong way, is into AR. So this one, let me just unplug that, uses the webcam, so let me fire that up. And there we go. I have an image here, which is the marker image, and this is something which you can configure, so you can scan whichever image you want to use for markers, and then away you go. And if I hold this up to the camera, it should detect and put something on the piece of paper. So yeah, there we've got our Away3D hands on there. And it's very fast, but this has actually also been rewritten in native extensions recently to be even faster. So it's something which Eugene will be talking about a lot more in his session later this afternoon. And it's a very cool use of Away3D. Okay, so a lot of the time you are creating, well, previous to Stage 3D, a lot of the content that was being created with the Away3D was sites that were advertising based. These days, Flash is being much more targeted at the games market, and with any kind of game, you almost always need some kind of physics in that. For that reason, earlier last year, we decided to create a physics library that integrated with Away3D 4, and it's called Away Physics, and it is currently in alpha, available in the same repository GitHub that we have for Away3D and everything else. And it's based on Bullet, which is another free open source physics library that is C-based. So it's using Alchemy to actually get it into Flash, and then it runs a little bit faster than you would normally run an action script. And this is really, really useful for physics, because physics requires a lot of calculations. 3D physics even more so. So it's important to try and get the best possible performance. But this particular demo I just want to show you now was done by one of our community members. And if I go to 4.0 beta, this uses a special primitive that's actually integrated into the Bullet physics library that is specifically for car physics. So the car is something which you use a lot in games, and so you have a pre-made library to actually wire up realistic car physics on various elements that you want to use. If I switch to something a little bit more interesting, this is, that's better. I just turned off anti-aliasing to make it a bit faster on this. So you can see this is quite simple to set up. This is the crucial thing. With something like physics, it's always difficult, a bit of a bind to get everything working together. You know, you have to try and create primitives for everything that then sort of simulate the physics as you want them, but not really sometimes. And Bullet sort of helps with that by providing things like the car physics model, and also this terrain collider, which actually takes any mesh that you throw at it and provides you with an accurate colliding object for that terrain. So it means that you can quickly and easily create physics which you would expect in a games engine. And I can drive in the water. I'm sure BMWs aren't supposed to be done. Okay. Okay, I'm going to have to speed it up a bit to get through everything. Mobile is a huge opportunity for us, I think. So recently, Air 3.2 was released, and this is something which now comes with Stage 3D as well, so you can actually use your mobile devices. And as I said before, this is crucial in being able to level the playing field with other technologies that publish to mobile, because the GPU is something which is almost required to have any kind of graphic performance. So having Stage 3D in Air is now a huge bonus. And I want to first of all show you something which was done by Fabrice, one of our core team. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to show you this on the webcam because I don't have a fancy plug-in for this particular thing. But this is on my phone, which is a Samsung S2. And what it is a little room demo, which allows you to, if you see that there, hang on a second. Is this working? Oh yeah, I'll use this. So this is running at 60 frames a second, and you can see it's really responsive on the mobile device. This is compiled with Air 3.2, and you've got, pinch zoom and all the rest of it. This is about 180,000 polygons rendering in real time. So the GPU is extremely powerful on mobile devices. It makes an enormous difference to what you can and can't do. And just to illustrate that, I want to show you a slightly older device. Sorry. Yeah, I thought I'd forgotten it. So this is an old 3G, this is my old 3GS iPhone, and let me just jump to the demo. So it's a smaller resolution screen, but you get surprisingly similar results. What's happening here is that data is actually being uploaded to the GPU. This is something which pretty much any application on mobile has to deal with. But now that it's done, you can see that this is exactly the same demo running on hardware that's now over 4 years old, again at 60 frames a second. So the possibilities really have opened up in what you can do with Air on mobile now. And as a further example of mobile, I just want to show you this short video on a project that was done by DFE, which is a company in the Netherlands. And they did this 3D Visitor Center using Away3D that's multi-platform, so both on web and on mobile. So, enjoy. Okay, so, oh no, it's still on. The last thing I want to talk about is to do with more with multi-platform, because I guess, you know, Flash has always been about multi-platform, but hasn't really had more multi than Windows and Mac in the past. It's not a criticism, it's just reality. And but mobile has really opened things up a bit. So now you have the option to do things like this. You can actually create something which is published across all platforms, both desktop and mobile. So that's something that we did, my own company, Away3D, not too long ago. And we created a game which is designed to be played on web, on desktop, on mobile, iOS, and on Android as well. And it's called Gloop. We are currently still testing the mobile versions, but they'll be released within the next week. And you can go to our Facebook page there, facebook.com/Gloop to follow us. But I just want to show you a quick demo of that now running on the iPad, just to show you what we're looking at here. Okay, so this is the game. Can you see that? No? Ah. Cable came out. It's a little bit difficult. Okay, I just need to hold it in. There we go. It's just this. Okay, you got it. So, this is a very familiar game, I expect. The idea is that you have a lot of levels and you have to complete them all. As you can see, I've been busy testing. But this is an example of, so I'll just show you a couple of levels. So you have a cannon and you have to fire a ball of green goo out of the cannon and try and hit target neatly placed over on the right here. And as you can see, the interface is really responsive. This is running at a full 60 frames a second, no problem, in Air 3.2. So the touch works great on this, the framework works great, and obviously all the graphics in the game area are rendered in Away3D. So if I just get this right, I can progress on to the next level. See, he splats. There's a little giggle as well, but you can't hear that. And so the development process for this was remarkably simple. If you're used to developing Flash projects, this is very, very similar. It's not really a big step. But of course, you have the ability to publish to all these platforms now. And with that, hopefully, the option of making a bit of cash out of it. In the end, we can but hope. But this is now going to be released as an initial preview version, which will be free. And we'll be showing a few more bits and pieces of this. In fact, tomorrow at the KRI conference, I'll be showing a breakdown of the development process of this. So if you're interested in more of this, then come and check that out. Okay. Okay, so we're nearly done here, and I just wanted to sort of mention briefly some stuff that we're working on currently for future release. So the thing that I think we're going to have time for is just this one, which is to do with particles. Now, particles are a complex kind of thing to try and get your head around in GPU land, because a particle itself has a position and a graphics, and that's great and everything, but if you try and upload thousands and thousands of individual positions and graphics to the GPU, it doesn't like it. And so you have to think of ways to be able to efficiently render these kinds of systems. So what we have here is the beginnings of a particle system in Away3D. And it uses a way of compressing all the particle data together so that it runs really nicely on the GPU. You can do a lot more with it than you would have been able to. So to illustrate this, I have a little demo for you. This is just an interface that allows you to test out different particle setups. So I've got like a stage here, and I have configuration files that I can open up and paste into the interface. So just to quickly do it so that I don't have to create something from scratch. But now if I play this, I should get a little fire effect. And the idea with this is that all the positional and effects data is calculated on the GPU. So all we're doing is feeding it starting values and then giving things like behaviors to particles. So in this case, the particle's behavior is to slowly rise up and change color. And once the GPU has that information, it doesn't need any more. It just runs like a little simulation entirely on the GPU, and for that reason, it's much, much faster. Let's do a little bit more of an interesting one. Snow effect. So this creates a sort of a nice snow scene sort of effect. And if you sort of full screen this, you have a variety of snowflake types, and they have a nice little sort of sway to them, and so on. Over on the right here is this interface which allows me to actually tweak the values that are running on the GPU and then rerun it. So if I wanted to say bump up the number of particles, and it doesn't, I can go to the particle count down here and maybe select a little bit more. Okay, it's going to bum out on me today. Well, you get the idea. This is something which is a preview, obviously, as you can see, but it's on a branch in the GitHub repository if you feel like checking it out and maybe even contributing to it. So we are, after all, reliant on the contributions of people like yourselves. Then yeah, check it out. It's on our GitHub repository, github.com/away3d, and in the main branch you'll find a branch called particles refactor or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's in there and available for you to try out. So I think I've just got time for some questions. If anyone has any, please fire away. Any questions? Yes. Are we going to get the microphone? Just a second. Yeah? Okay, go on. Yeah, go on. Go.
Basically, you're familiar with the so-called
Speed tax. Oh, yes.
The question is, what do you think about speed tags? And does Away3D use domain memory, because it's obviously using stage 3D?
Yes. Okay. So the speed tax thing, as you're calling it, is to do with the APIs that are that used to be called alchemy, essentially, right? It's a difficult thing to get across because it's a complex situation. But basically, Adobe are proposing 9%, I believe, of revenue made out of using Flash in this manner will be charged to you if you use it in a project. Now, this is only applicable when you have both Stage 3D and Alchemy running together. So for us, it's not applicable because we have just the Stage 3D APIs in Away3D. So you can use Away3D as much as you like. Not be affected. Where it would potentially affect you is in some of the other APIs like the physics library, which, as I said, uses Alchemy. But as a sort of option there is also another library called Jiglib, which I believe some of you may have heard of, which is completely attribute-based. It doesn't use Alchemy at all. And that's very good for simple physics stuff if you just want to create like a nice sort of marketing site. So you have that option to still be able to create something without being affected by this speed tax. So there are options really. But I think that in many ways it's necessary to be able to fund the sort of progress of the Flash player to be able to put in new features like the station APIs. In the future, we want to be able to have even more performance in the system, so this will hopefully facilitate that. I hope that it does. Sorry? Oh yeah, and it's not applicable on anything below 50k, so if your app makes less than 50k, you don't have to pay it, even if you're using both Alchemy and Station. Sorry, I'm going to have to just take one more. So, one more question? Yes? There was hands. Go on.
What about shaders?
What about
Or design shaders?
Oh yeah, so we are currently working on adding the APIs to prefab, which will allow you to actually tweak the materials much more than you can currently. So prefab in its current form allows you to assign material textures and so on, but doesn't allow you to kind of change their functionality, and that will change in the future. So we're hoping to be able to start working on that as soon as this version of prefab is done. So yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I'm done here, and Enrique's up next. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.